This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad and live today. It was recently brought to my attention that there is an extreme sport out there called cluster ballooning. Now, to call this a sport, that might be a stretch. To me, it seems more like an extreme hobby. Anyway, cluster ballooning is when someone attaches themselves to a cluster of helium-inflated rubber balloons, and then you guessed it, they are lifted off the ground and begin to fly. Now, there are many instances of people participating in cluster ballooning, from a guy who attached balloons to his lawn chair, thus earning him the nickname Lawn Chair Larry, to illusionist David Blaine. But one guy that stands out for me is a guy by the name of Jonathan Trapp. This man became the first person to cross the English Channel by cluster balloons. He achieved heights of 7,500 feet as he gently glided over 22 miles. After his peaceful and quiet 4-hour journey, he reflected on the trip. He said this to reporters: "The true miracle of the sport is that we reawaken the dream that we all once had that has grown quiet." For Trapp, growing up, he had always had the desire to defy the laws of nature and to fly. Through his dedication and planning and perseverance, he was able to achieve it. What is it that we are dedicated to in life? I don't think any of you would argue with me when I would say that we are dedicated to our families, to work, paying the bills on time, taking our kids to their Little League games, being a good neighbor, getting involved at church, supporting philanthropic causes, and living a healthy lifestyle. I mean, these are just a handful of things that we feel are important cornerstones in our lives. And then there are the other hobbies and chores that occupy our time. Maybe it's planting a garden, refinishing a dresser, knitting a shawl, running a marathon, learning to play the guitar, or soaring into the air attached to balloons. While not cornerstones, these items do play a larger role in bringing happiness into our lives by creating a sense of accomplishment that we can be proud of. In our gospel story for today, Jesus' dedication bursts through with each verse that's read. He has his face set on Jerusalem. He knows that the cross awaits him, and he is dedicated to seeing that God's plan of salvation for humanity is carried out in a timely fashion. The Passover is on the horizon, and Jesus and his disciples are traveling there to celebrate this historic Jewish event. Now, there still is time for Jesus to change his mind. I mean, there's still plenty of opportunity for him to kind of duck out and avoid the authorities that will be awaiting his arrival. His human side must certainly be telling him to not go through with the plan. His divine side undoubtedly is saying, "I have no choice. I must face death on the cross. I love my people too much." Through experience, I've learned that when it comes to our choice versus God's choice is always the right choice. So this is a no-brainer. I mean, Jesus will march into Jerusalem. He will face the consequences of an unruly crowd and a corrupt court, and he will die on behalf of all people. But before he does, Jesus needs to plant into the hearts and minds of the people what being a follower is all about. After all, he's not going to be around forever, and someone will have to carry this message that we should love God, serve others, and live under the banner of God's forgiving and merciful grace. What kind of person will it take to carry this message? What type of dedication is required to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? We read in our gospel that on Jesus' journey, he encounters 3 different people, all of which are invited to join him as followers. The first man says that he will go wherever Jesus goes. But Jesus shoots back, "Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." In other words, the path of discipleship is not exactly easy. You will encounter people that are going to tell you to buzz off, and you won't have the protective comforts of a home to retreat to when the going gets tough. You must be dedicated. Now, the second and third men have different stories. Jesus tells one to follow me, and the first guy says that he must first go and bury his father. The other says that he will follow Jesus, but he must first say farewell to those who are at home. These 2 replies, they don't sit well with Jesus. These 2 people, whether their excuses are legitimate or not, they cannot meet the demands that Jesus dictates. Jesus wants them to choose him over everything else going on in their lives. He wants them to make him the number one priority. And quite frankly, they just can't do that. Now, the story might scare us a bit. I know it rattles me. Can I be dedicated to Jesus if it means that I have to neglect the family that I love and my friends and my work and those cornerstone things that are important to me? I don't know. That's a tough one. But I'm not so sure that this is what Jesus is saying, to drop all that we have and dismiss everyone who is important to us. For one, I don't think it's realistic. But even more so, I believe Jesus clearly wants us to be in community with one another. He wants us to love and care for each other. What I think Jesus is calling us to do is this: to center ourselves and dedicate our lives to him. Make him our number one. And once we do that, then everything else that is important to us will fall into place as he serves as our foundation. Now let's explore this particular mindset just a little bit further. In the beginning of today's gospel story, prior to Jesus' encounter with these three men, we read that Jesus, James, and John enter a Samaritan village, and they are not well received. They aren't shown any hospitality or common courtesies. So James and John take this personally, and they ask Jesus if they should command fire to come down from heaven and to consume these people. Maybe then these people will come around and believe. But this is not the response that Jesus desires. For gospel writer Luke says that Jesus turned away and rebuked them. Jesus corrects his disciples. Fire and brimstone, while it might be mildly entertaining, it's really not the answer. This method of convincing never makes someone want to have a loving relationship with Jesus Christ. Instead, Jesus asks us all to show compassion and generosity, forgiveness, and to love our neighbor. For the Son of Man comes not to destroy lives, but to save lives. So can we do this? Can we have passion and dedication so that we treat others with kindness and respect? The command that Jesus gives to us to love others and to love God is a simple one, but it isn't always easy. However, when we dedicate ourselves to Jesus, it certainly becomes possible. So turn to Jesus. Let God's love give you strength to fuel your passions and to drive your dedicated spirit. For when you do, you will soar to great heights and experience the peacefulness of God in amazing ways. No balloons required. Amen. Remember as you go about your day that yesterday is gone. Tomorrow does not yet belong to you. So why not live today, knowing that you never walk alone? We'll see y'all next week. Later.